I never thought a night out would end with me here. 1 minute we were laughing, tossing back drinks, joking about nothing at all. The next, a fight had broken out, fast and ugly, and I was in it before I even knew why. Fists flew, a bottle shattered, someone screamed. I tried to step back, tried to stop it, but it was too late. When the police arrived, I barely had time to register what had happened. Handcuffs, flashing lights, voices barking instructions. I was swept into a world I didn't know existed, and somehow I was in it alone. The station smelled like bleach and metal, like fear had a scent of its own. By the time I got booked, fingerprinted, shoved into a holding cell, I realized I wasn't just in trouble. I was exposed, completely vulnerable. Concrete walls pressed in from every side. The sounds of shouting, chains clanging, doors slamming. They weren't just noise. They burrowed under my skin, into my chest, and settled there. I could feel the tension of the place almost physically, like static running over my arms. My first cell was cold, a thin mattress on concrete, a metal toilet in the corner, walls streaked with grime. That was enough to make you uncomfortable, but it was what shared that cell that really got to me. My cellmate Lopez was older, bald, tattoos covering his arms and chest. He didn't say anything, just watched, quiet and still. There was nothing friendly in him, no attempt to be welcoming. He made you feel like every breath you took was under scrutiny. I learned quickly that his silence was its own kind of weight. And then there was Rivas. I knew about him before I saw him, in the murmurs, and the way other men moved out of his path. When I finally saw him in the yard, he wasn't yelling, he wasn't showing off. He moved like someone who understood the rhythms of the place better than anyone else, a predator wrapped in lean muscle. A scar ran down his jaw, and his eyes were sharp, always scanning, calculating. Something about him made the air feel thicker. I could sense him noticing me from the moment I arrived, and it was like a test I didn't know I'd signed up for. The first meal in the cafeteria was surreal, cold, gray slop on a tray, the smell worse than anything I'd imagined. The tension wasn't in the food, it was in the men around me, their gazes, the way corners were claimed, the way glances meant something unspoken. Rivas moved among them silently, always observing. Every second I spent near him, I felt the pull of his presence, the unspoken understanding that he could control more than I wanted to admit. Sleep that night was impossible. The cell seemed to breathe with the noises of the prison, a chair scraping, the drip of water somewhere far away, footsteps echoing down the hall. They all reached me, clawing through my exhaustion. Shadows twisted in ways they shouldn't, shapes that looked like figures at the edge of my vision. I imagined Rivas just outside, watching, testing me, and my pulse kept time with every imagined twitch of his eyes. The fight that got me here kept playing in my mind. I could see the other guy's face, the way the room spun. The moment I realized I wasn't over my head, that fear became a constant companion. And then the new layer, the fear inside the prison, was like multiplying it by 100. Everything was potential danger. Every movement had meaning. Every glance carried weight. By the middle of the week, the plan Rivas had set in motion was almost unbearable. He didn't speak, but I knew what he wanted from me. He and his group were planning to get out. They'd studied the guards, the cameras, the doors, and I was the one meant to be bait. They didn't need words to make it clear. Every time he passed, I could feel the unspoken demand: participate or suffer consequences. Lopez never joined in. His silence became a kind of shield. He watched, assessing, untouched by the scheming around him. And yet, even his calm reminded me of how vulnerable I was. When a loud noise rattled the hall, or a tray slipped in the cafeteria, I could feel the tension shift, the invisible strings of control tightening around me. I had no way to tell what would happen next. There were moments that made me think I couldn't survive. In the yard, a small scuffle erupted near where I stood. My instincts screamed at me to react, to defend myself or run. Instead, I froze. Every movement I made was being noted, every hesitation catalogued. Rivas's eyes caught mine from across the yard, calm but unreadable, and I understood in that instant that one wrong decision could mean being the one who didn't leave the prison alive. The nights were worse. The lights flickered, went out, left the cell in darkness that swallowed me whole. Steam from the showers lingered, carrying the mixed smell of sweat and mildew. I could sense Rivas somewhere near, even when I couldn't see him. Lopez lay still, breathing like he'd already surrendered to this new rhythm, and I remained awake, counting seconds, imagining every worst-case scenario, waiting for the moment the plan would force my hand. By the fifth night, it almost happened. A guard moved past me differently than usual, something subtle, and I realized Rivas was watching, testing. He could orchestrate the environment without a word, create fear with nothing but presence. I felt the walls of my mind stretching, bending, and at times breaking. Every step I took, every turn of my head was calculated. Sleep didn't exist. I only survived in vigilance, in anticipation, in holding myself together when the world around me seemed intent on tearing apart. And then it failed. The plan, the escape, the careful sequence Rivas had spent months preparing collapsed. Someone ratted them out, maybe a guard, maybe another prisoner. I never saw the exact moment it happened, but the effect rippled through the prison. Guards moved with new intensity. Rivas's calm mask never faltered, but I could see the tension in the way he moved, the way his shadow lingered longer than it should. Lopez didn't look up. He only stayed silent, still as ever, and somehow that quiet made me feel like survival might still be possible. The final nights of that week were a haze. Every noise made me flinch. Every shadow looked like it might strike. I counted my breaths, measured my movements, wondered if the next day would be my last in some small, unnoticed way. My body was tense. My mind sharpened to every detail, and my memory recorded everything. The smell of damp concrete, the metallic tang in the air, the distant echoes of doors closing, the way Rivas moved without anyone noticing. By the time the first week ended, I had changed. I wasn't just scared. I was alert, careful, aware of the fragile balance of power in that place. I had learned that fear itself could be a weapon, that control didn't always need to be physical. Rivas and Lopez remained fixtures in my memory, impossible to ignore, each teaching a different lesson about what it meant to survive here. Even now, years later, I can recall it all as if it happened yesterday. The sounds, the shadows, the oppressive presence of men like Rivas, the silent judgment of someone like Lopez, they live in my memory as vividly as they did in the cell. I survived my first week in prison, but barely. Every lock that clicks, every shadow that shifts, every footstep in a quiet hall brings me back to that place. And I know the fear never truly leaves. I keep a small notebook, not to relive it, but to remember, to remind myself what vigilance feels like, what attention demands, what fear teaches. Some lessons aren't learned, they're survived. And the men like Rivas, they never really leave.